Hello. Welcome to the Turret of Pleasure here in the Enchanted Kingdom of Hermione. I'm Zipp Gunn. I'm the Lord Chamberlain of the Enchanted Kingdom. Coming at you on a cold, blustery day. And we're going in onto some of my moments, my personal moments that were also moments in music history that most of them are significant. And we've moved along to November 1964. I'm 5 years old at this point in time. And by this point in time, I am a devotee of AM radio, which was really starting to really become a huge cultural force. And I was fortunate in many regards because I lived in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada, as I still do. I live in Zipp now, which is outside. But I've always lived on the south coast of Vancouver Island. And we had benefits to this because, unlike major urban centers in America, say, our AM radio stations played a little bit of everything. In places like, say, Chicago, you had the black station, you had the white station, you had the easy listening station, you had whatever. Here, you just had the station. And FM radio hadn't really started yet. And so I think we had actually 2 or 3 AM stations in town. And they were roughly the same. One was maybe a little more rock and roll than the other. We had a station called CKDA, and we had a station called CJVI. And if I remember right, CJVI was just a little more rock. But I didn't really have a favorite. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to listen to the radio. And in November 1964, a song came on the radio that fascinated me. And it fascinated me, and this is one of the first ones that are going to happen in these moments. The reason it fascinated me was the sound of it. It was a sound. And, of course, when you're 5 years old, you don't know the technical terms. You don't know anything, right? Don't know a damn thing. But I just knew that this record sounded different than all the other records I'd heard. Actually, it was a little similar to a single I already had. Or no, I didn't have it by this point. No, so that's true. Okay. But this was You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin' by the Righteous Brothers. And this record is significant for me. It was a gigantic hit, needless to say. Possibly, boy, I wonder if it was Phil Spector's biggest hit. Very close. Certainly the Righteous Brothers' biggest hit. And the reason this record stopped me in my tracks was the reverb. And the reverb, of course, Phil Spector, he was fond of reverb. And the reverb on this song is cavernous. And I just couldn't get over the hugeness of the sound. And when they go, they get into the chorus, it's just like the biggest thing you've ever heard. And it didn't even matter whether the song was a good song or not. It's a pretty darn good song, actually, but I just couldn't get over that it sounded so different than most everything else on the radio. And that was the sort of, that year was when, the Beatles were going. But the Beatles weren't new to me anymore, and I was listening to every Beatles song I could hear. And of course, they were all over the radio all the time. But because I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I've always been a bit of a, I don't know what I march to my own drummer kind of guy. I was always inclined to take the path less traveled, if you will. So I don't want to say I got bored of the Beatles, but the Beatles whetted my appetite for other things, and this one stuck out on the radio. And it's one of about maybe 10 songs from the early to mid 60s that really stuck out in my mind as they were influential in just because I'd never heard this sound before. And needless to say, Phil Spector made a million records. I had heard them, but things like Be My Baby and, To Do Run Run, they weren't they didn't impact me as much as this one. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were just a bit too bubblegum. Maybe they were girl groups. I wasn't really into girl groups as a little kid. And the Righteous Brothers, of course, you have lost that. I had a big stentorian voice. So maybe I identified more with men at that point. I don't know. But at any rate, it was enchanting. And I never owned a copy of it. I've got it on a CD somewhere. But I don't think I ever owned the record. Because back then, acquiring records was tough. I would get records sometimes for my birthday or for Christmas, but LPs were almost $5, I think, back then, $4. And I no more had $5 and I had $100. So I would get occasionally this and that and the next thing for Christmas. In fact, I don't think I even got records for birthday or Christmas up until much before about 66 or 67. But I did listen to a lot of the radio. And this was my go-to cut towards the end of 1964. And of course, I guess that would have been, the Beatles were going full tilt. I Want to Hold Your Hand was January 64. And I forget what else. They were putting records out like getting crazy. So this was the sort of first non-Beatle track that really knocked me out. So for me, it was a big moment. And that's why it's in this list. So there you go. I'm keeping these short. I'm trying to keep these short because, there's only so much you can say about some of these things. Some of them have better stories than others. This one's not really. It was on Phillies Records, I remember. As a kid, I was really into record labels, strangely, just because I thought the labels were cool. Phillies was sadly a black label with silver lettering. It was boring. So I didn't really like the label, which is funny because I soon discovered that the best looking labels usually contain crappy music. But that took a while to figure out. But that was the big moment in 64 for me. Anyways, thank you for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000. I don't know why. Apparently good things happen when I hit 1,000, but there you go. I'm going to do a whole bunch of these. Everything in my life that made a difference, I'm going to try. There's not that many. There's maybe, I don't know. I think my list is up to about 20, but there might be some more. Thanks for watching, and take care of each other. Hope you have a good holiday while that happens, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.